Why can't I be happy? Come on. You've seen the place I live in. I should be in something much nicer than that apartment. And, I have no social life. I bust my ass at work every day. And, then I come home and I have so much to do. And I think I'm never going to get it done. So I just sit down and I don't take care of business. And, I tell myself I should be able to have some fun. But then when I try, I feel so guilty. And I don't know why you don't understand why I can't be happy. You know my history. Oh my God, my history. I've had so much pain in the past. And right now I'm so confused by everything. I don't know what the hell is going on. I don't know where I'm supposed to be going. I don't even know how to track on my grocery list anymore. I'm so confused. So, why am I not happy? Because my life is just one big fucking struggle, and I don't know how come you don't understand that when you've seen me try so hard and nothing ever goes right. You probably saw the thumbnail and thought, addiction to suffering? Can that be? Why would anyone choose to be addicted to suffering? Well, let's face it, no one chooses addiction. Addiction to anything is not a fun place to be, because here we have something that has so much power and control over us, and we can't escape it. Suffering is, unfortunately, one of those things that we can become addicted to. For those of us that have had challenging lives pretty much from the start, we may be thinking, struggling and suffering is just my lot. We think we have to accept it, and we don't realize that we are actually keeping ourselves addicted. A few years ago, my daughter said something so profound. I was so proud of her and felt kind of like a dumb cluck that I had never realized it. She said, sometimes I think that we stay sad just because it's easier, because we're used to it. And she's absolutely right, now that I have paid attention to that. People like to stay in their comfort zones. It is easier to stay with something we have known for a long time than to fight our way out of it. Suffering, though, come on. Suffering can include all those other things we're addicted to. Suffering can include that sadness, can include anger and frustration and all sorts of emotions that are not fun to be feeling. As it turns out, we do keep ourselves in that suffering mode because there are 5 ways of looking at our lives or mental habits that can keep us there. So figuring that being aware of what we're doing is always helpful, I'm going to go through those 5 things. The first one is we see ourselves as not being enough, or we see our lives as lacking. So it could be you think that you should have a bigger house, or you're thinking about how sad you are that you don't have a boyfriend or a girlfriend, or you do something and you think it wasn't good enough and you don't think about all the things that you did that were not only good enough but excellently performed. It is just seeing the lack in things and yourself and staying in that mind frame instead of being grateful. It doesn't take a whole lot to look around and see things that we could make note of that we are grateful for, but we just don't think about it a lot of times, especially when we're addicted to suffering. So a dumb thing for me, but every night when I get in the shower, because my last place, the water wasn't warm and the tank was small, I go, Thank you, universe, for this awesome shower, because the water is plenty hot and it'll last way past when I'm ready to get out. Now that might seem like a silly thing to say thank you for, but it's not just the shower I am thanking the universe for. It is that instant easing of tension. So it could be small things. It could be, oh, I am so grateful that I don't have ants anymore now that the summer is over. Or I am so grateful that I don't have to mow the lawn again until the spring. We just have to make an effort to look around and appreciate what we have. And in ourselves, we need to quit seeing how we're coming up short and start acknowledging the ways that I can't say are coming up long, but the ways that we are succeeding. We need to celebrate our successes and quit thinking that we don't measure up, because that's lack. The second thing is to have kind of a distorted perception of time. Now, I'm kind of ashamed, but I think of myself as only having so many years left to do anything noteworthy. Well, that's not right. I actually am supposed to have many, many years. When I see myself as not having done enough, I'm seeing lack. And when I see that I am limited to how long I have to do something I deem to be worthy of people appreciating or whatever, then I have a distorted perception of time. But how it usually works is we think that we only have so much time in a day, and so we rush around and we get all stressed out, and then we start making mistakes because we're rushing. And then on the opposite end of the spectrum, it could be that we look at the projects that we have yet to do and we think, oh, there's not enough time, I'll just put it off until I do have enough time. We are procrastinating. We don't want to do it, so we come up with a reason we don't have to. You know, there's enough time in the day if you don't put so many demands on yourself. I know people that keep lists, and they'll have like 10 things. And if they don't finish all 10 things, they look at themselves as a disappointment. Well, you know what? There's no reason that you can't do the top 3 and move the bottom 7 to the next day. You know, life is here to enjoy, not to cross things off the list. So we have to quit looking at ourselves as limited in time. And you know, the procrastination, I don't even know what to say about that, because I'm awful and I haven't figured out a way around it. I know that we are adding to our suffering, because by putting it off, we're not putting it out of our minds. So we're often getting reminded that we're not handling something we really need to. And sometimes we're procrastinating on things that can bring consequences if we don't complete them. You know, that's a lot of what procrastination can be, is fear. But what will happen if I tackle this? There might be something bad that comes my way. Well, a lot of times what we don't tackle can still bring things that might be uncomfortable our way. The next thing is being overwhelmingly confused. And that has a lot to do with how we look at our time and that distortion. You know, we get so scattered. We don't remember to ground. We don't take time to savor our lives, and we get all confused about what we should be doing next, because we still have hanging in our minds what we should be doing and we aren't. You know, if we are wandering around, and I'll admit I often do this, I am so confused by what's going on. I don't even know where to go next. It can make us freeze. It can make us stuck. And being stagnant is stressful. That's suffering. Another one is that We can't have fun without feeling guilty, because we're thinking about all those things that we should be doing, the shoulds and the have-tos. And we forget about the want-tos, or if we actually attempt to do a want-to and to have fun, we ruin it because we can't just relax without feeling guilty about all those shoulds and have-tos. And the last one is staying in the past. You know, I'm just as guilty as anyone else, but we can't keep track of all those insults and injuries. We can't keep bringing up to ourselves how we've had such a painful past to keep us from living our lives, but many of us do that. Well, it's kind of linked to my last video, the amygdala. You know, we file away those things that have happened to us. That doesn't mean we have to be in the file cabinet all the time, you know? We don't want to be in victim mode. We don't want to keep bringing up the past, and we definitely don't want to let what's happened in the past keep us from moving forward into the future. We don't even want to let it steal what's going on in this day. It makes us miss out. So those are things that you may be doing that are making you feel like life is always a struggle. And I will just admit, I am often saying, why does everything have to be so hard? Am I ever going to get to a time when things are easier? I'm tired of suffering. I've done the suffering stuff. I'm ready for the happy, joyful, blissful things. And yet, other than I can have fun without feeling guilty at this point, I do all those things too. All we have to do to start with is to be aware of what we're doing and catch ourselves and see how we could be thinking differently. It's like with anything, you know, it takes time to break a bad habit, and it takes time to build a healthy one. So maybe just keep those things in mind. Maybe make a little list. You know, if you're going to have a list, there's a good one. And try to start making note of how you are making things harder on yourself with your choices. How is it going to hurt if you take time out to do something fun? If you take some time to relax and enjoy yourself without worrying about what you should be doing, without feeling guilty, that'll make you less confused, it'll make you less stressed. If you take the time to really appreciate the fun you're having, then you're showing your gratitude, and you'll get more things to be grateful for. And you know, that staying stuck in the past stuff, everyone knows it's not a good thing. It's not so easy to accomplish, getting out of the past and staying in the now. But they're all things that we can work on. Now, I'm not done though, because it did occur to me that there could be another reason that we are suffering. And that is, we may have made a vow or an oath in another life, and it has carried forward with us. People in past lives can have made a vow of poverty and wonder why they never can get ahead with their finances. They can have made a vow of silence and wonder why it's so hard for them to speak up. You know, something that happened for me in the last few days, I have tried being an online psychic, and I couldn't stand it. You know, the time limits, just when you're starting to get into something that could be helpful, boom, the call's terminated because they run out of money. Or the kinds of questions, you know, which seemed so disempowering, and I couldn't say anything, and all the waiting without any kind of activity. It really was not fun. And so I decided, no, you know what? I don't have to stay here. It was worth trying. It's not up my alley. And so I wrote an email and said that I was going to quit. They asked me to stay a little longer and give it some more time, but it just wasn't working. So on Friday, I think it was, I sent an email and I had some suggestions for maybe how they could have done things differently, not only with me, but with other new psychics, to make it so it would have been a more satisfying start. And, you know, I was getting input from Spirit about a couple of things in addition to my points. And I took the time to check in and reread it 5 or 6 times and make sure that I should send it, and I was given the go-ahead. But all this weekend, I've been afraid to check my email to see what the response is back. And I knew I do this all the time. I have finally gotten to the point where I will speak up, but then afterwards I get this fear that comes over me about retribution or repercussions. And it occurred to me, this is past life catching up with me. I have been tortured. I have been killed in the past for speaking my truth. We can't discount that what is going on in our lives could be something that we've drug into this life with us from past lives. I'm trying to think of what other kinds of vows. Oh, well, there are vows of celibacy that people take. If you have a problem being a leader, it could be that you abused your power at one time or another in another life, and you vowed not ever to abuse your power again, and so it's just easier to not be in power. As to love, people will vow to be with a person forever, or they will vow never to love again. So you could be in a karmic situation and you find that you just can't get out of it no matter how miserable you are. That could be because you made a vow in a past life. So since I'm bringing this stuff up, I want to say it's not like we're stuck. There are plenty of healers that would offer to take your money and revoke or rescind those kinds of things for you, but you actually can do it yourself, and it can be in a very simple way. I know that it probably should be fancier, but you can say, I am revoking or rescinding all vows, oaths, contracts, agreements I have made in this life or any others, on any plane, on any timeline. That's just my wording. You can look it up, and I'm sure you can find something fancier. I'm sure they have meditations about it, or you can go pay a healer. But we're not stuck with those things. If you're wondering why you're having an issue with money, why you're having trouble speaking up, why you feel like you always have to wait on other people or make them happy, that could be a vow of servitude. If there's anything that just seems really confusing to you about why you're allowing it to happen, why you feel stuck, it could be a vow or an oath. So it wouldn't hurt anyone that's watching this to take a moment and revoke anything that they might have brought with them. And you can name it specifically if you think that you're on to one in particular or two, but you can just broadly revoke or rescind these kinds of things. It won't hurt. Now the other thing, some of these are not so much brain surgery level. They're pretty simple. We prolong our own suffering when we know something's not good for us, but we have an addiction. Now that could be a substance, it could be shopping, it could be sex, it could be a person. It is not easy to break addictions, but if it's something like people pleasing and we're doing that because we think they are more worthy than we are, then we can start working on our own self-worth perception. It's not that we don't have worth, it's that we've bought into stories in the past from other people. We can work on something like that, where if you're in a situation where someone is constantly hurting you and you're choosing to stay in it despite that, you do have control over that. Anyway, do maybe look into revoking any vows, especially if you're in some kind of stinky situation and you can't figure out why you're not trying to break out of it. And do think about those 5 points and try to catch yourself, because suffering is not anything any of us should do. We're all here to eventually live our bliss. Suffering doesn't fit into that picture. All right, guys.